Draw, weeknights at 6:30.
CBS News coverage of Campaign 88 continues. Tonight, Super Tuesday. Reporting from CBS News election headquarters in New York, here is Dan Rather.
Good evening. It's George Bush's night to shine in the Lone Star State and in a lot of other Super Tuesday states too so far. So far, it has been a Bush blowout. Among Democrats, Michael Dukakis, Jesse Jackson, and Al Gore all score. Richard Gephardt, low man so far among the top four. Those are the headlines as we begin our 2 hours of Super Tuesday coverage. For the politicians, a mega monster of primary and caucus night, 20 states being decided all at once, most not all in the South. 1/3 of all the delegates to the national Republican and Democratic nominating conventions at stake on this one night. A night that almost certainly is the next cut in the nomination fight. Among the key questions tonight, among Republicans, does George Bush do well enough to sweep the South and sweep away Robert Dole? Is the question going to be after this, can anybody stop Bush? Will Pat Robertson revive or get belted in the Bible Belt? Among Democrats, does anyone emerge from the muddle to be frontrunner? Does Jesse Jackson come out of Super Tuesday transformed from a back-of-the-pack protest candidate to power player and definite contender? Joining us tonight to try to find the answers and to make sense of it all, if that's at all possible, some of our veteran CBS News colleagues. Our chief Washington correspondent, Bob Schieffer, covering the Republicans. The CBS News chief political correspondent, Bruce Morton, on the Democrats. Our national affairs correspondent, Leslie Stahl, analyzing our own polling results. We're going to tell you not only what happened, but why it happened. 60 Minutes correspondent, Mike Wallace, on the medium, the message, and the money of Campaign 88. Good to have you with us, Mike. And 60 Minutes correspondent, Ed Bradley, on campaign life after Super Tuesday. What happens after tonight, including what may happen to Mario Cuomo. And also joining me tonight with their perspectives, William Safire, syndicated columnist of the New York Times and author of the book Freedom. Roger Rosenblatt, senior writer for Time magazine and author of the book Children of War. Now it's just after 8 p.m. here in the East. The polls have just closed in 8 more states, including the biggest of the Super Tuesday big ones, Texas. In all, 16 primaries, 4 caucuses. Let's look them over. First, in the Lone Star State, where the Longhorns once roamed, our CBS News estimate is that in Texas, Vice President George Bush has won the Republican primary, and the Bush big train continues to roll. In Missouri, the Show Me State, where the riverboats once were king, Richard Gephardt wins his home state. You remember that Gephardt won in Iowa, now he wins in Missouri. In Alabama, the heart of Dixie, deep in the heart of cotton country, Vice President George Bush has won the Republican primary in Alabama. Bush has won, among others, Texas and Alabama. Now moving up to a border state, Maryland, the so-called old line state, Michael Dukakis, the governor of Massachusetts, our CBS News estimate is he has won in Maryland. That's one of the states Dukakis thought he might lose. He doesn't lose it. He wins it. On the Republican side, George Bush wins in Maryland. So far, Bush has won every state where there is a decision. Moving on up the line, keeping in mind that not all of the results are in the South tonight, in Massachusetts, you'd be surprised if Michael Dukakis, the governor there, didn't win. No surprise, he does win. Dukakis carries his home state by a very large margin. Also in Massachusetts, Vice President George Bush wins. Bush has done extremely well throughout New England, and he wins tonight in Massachusetts. Now, moving back down south, in Mississippi, in the Magnolia State, our CBS News estimate is that George Bush wins in Mississippi, where Pat Robertson once felt that he could win. We're going to Oklahoma. I'm not sure that we don't have a result among the Democrats in Mississippi, but we'll get back to that later on. Albert Gore, our CBS News estimate is he has carried Oklahoma. An important win for Albert Gore. Richard Gephardt had hoped to win in Oklahoma, expected to win, but Gore gets the win in Oklahoma. Our CBS News estimate is that in the volunteer state, Albert Gore Jr., the senator from there, has carried his home state of Tennessee. They say that You know, home has to take care of you. Home has taken care of Albert Gore, but it's also taken care of Vice President George Bush. Bush continues with a sweep so far of all the states where our CBS News estimates are definitive. Now, earlier this evening, we had the following results, and we'll go over those quickly for you. Some of you have heard these before. Earlier tonight on the Democratic side, Governor Dukakis won the big state of Florida. The Reverend Jesse Jackson won Georgia and Virginia. And Tennessee Senator Albert Gore won Kentucky. So that means Gore has won now Kentucky, Tennessee, and Oklahoma. A name to watch as the night goes along, because what Gore wants to do is bump Dick Gephardt aside as the major challenger to Michael Dukakis and Jesse Jackson. We'll see whether he can do it. He's off to a pretty good start. In North Carolina, our CBS News estimate is that it's very close between Gore and Jackson in North Carolina, so that's one of the places we're watching closely. On the Republican side, all George Bush so far. He has won Kentucky, Florida, Georgia, and Virginia, in addition to the states that we just named to you, including Texas. It's close in North Carolina between Vice President George Bush and Senator Bob Dole. Right now, it looks as though that as the evening goes along, that one of the few states that Bob Dole has any chance of carrying is North Carolina. Our estimate is it's very close there. Let's pause, and I recognize you need a speed-looking course to keep up with all of those results. Let's take a look at George Bush, just where he stands overall on this Super Tuesday night, how he's done in the races so far. We put together this star-spangled bar graph, which you'll be seeing with most of the candidates as the night goes along. Every state where there is a definitive result thus far, George Bush has carried it. A very big night indeed for the Vice President. Texas, Alabama, Maryland, Massachusetts, Mississippi, Tennessee, Kentucky, Florida, Georgia, Virginia, all states that George Bush has carried. Bob Schieffer, our chief Washington correspondent, has been watching the Republican campaign as he's gone along, has watched these results tonight. The size and scope of George Bush's win is truly impressive, and I guess it's about ABB time for the Republicans, isn't it, Bob? That is, anybody but Bush if they can stop him.
Well, if I counted up correctly on the graph that was just up, George Bush has now won 10 primaries. Now, mind you, on the Republican side of this tonight, there are only 17, and one of them, the one in Virginia, is a beauty contest. So there are only 6 places left where Bob Dole would have a chance if he were going to win something. He's pinning his hopes, as I understand it, on Missouri and perhaps North Carolina, where which is his wife's home state. If you want to know why this is happening, then look at a couple of statistics, Dan. George Bush always does well in places where Republicans like Ronald Reagan, and just look what's going on here tonight. 83% of the Republicans who went to the polls today said that they approved of the way the president is doing his job. Now, you won't find any region of the country where the president has a higher approval rating than that. Even in New Hampshire, which was supposed to be a Ronald Reagan country, his popularity was in the 70 percentiles. Another fascinating statistic tonight, and that is 62% of the people who went to the Republican polls tonight across the South, across the Super Tuesday states, said they made up their minds prior to New Hampshire. So what that means is that even after George Bush took a real drubbing in Iowa, people in the South who were for George Bush stuck with him, and then George Bush sealed it by winning New Hampshire. I think before this night is out, Dan, we may say that Bob Dole did not lose any chance of doing well across the South tonight. He lost his chance in New Hampshire when he let George Bush beat him there.
Well, for perspective, Bob, as the evening shapes up, when this evening is over, George Bush could have on the order of maybe 65% of the delegates needed to win the Republican nomination. If that turns out to be the case, he wouldn't have the nomination, but he'd be in a very good position to take it, to say the least.
He'd be in the position that he could win it several places down the line. Bob Dole is already in the position, it seems to me, Dan, that if he's going to win this nomination, number one, he needs a miracle, and he'd probably have to win it at the convention. It's, I think, at this point, all but impossible for him to win it before he gets to the convention.
Bob, I'm just told that our CBS News estimate is that there's bad news for Bob Dole in North Carolina. North Carolina being the home state of Libby Dole, our CBS News estimate is that in the Tar Heel state, on the Republican side, Vice President George Bush has won it in North Carolina. And how sweet that must be for George Bush, because there were many people who said, well, I'll tell you one place George Bush can't win, and that'll be in North Carolina. He wins it there.
That's bad news for Bob Dole.
Now, our CBS News estimate is that Jesse Jackson has won in Mississippi. You may recall a moment or two ago when we had just a little glitch in our boards, computers and Anchorman not being perfect. The board for Mississippi didn't come up. Jesse Jackson, our CBS News estimate is, has carried the state of Mississippi. So it's shaping up to be a very good night for Jesse Jackson, not on the order of George Bush's night on the Republican side, since Bush has won every single state where there's been a decision thus far, including just now North Carolina. But a big night indeed for Jesse Jackson. Now, our chief political correspondent, Bruce Morton, has been following the ups and downs of Jesse Jackson, mostly the ups this year so far, and the Democrats in general. Bruce, how did the Democrats do in their home states?
Well, everybody won his home state, which I guess is what's supposed to happen. Mom and Dad got the neighbors out in Missouri for Gephardt, in Massachusetts for Governor Dukakis, and, of course, in Tennessee for Albert Gore. The battle is being fought elsewhere, and we might begin by taking a look at Oklahoma. That was a state that Dick Gephardt had hoped to win. He was out there campaigning for an oil import fee, which was supposed to be popular in an oil state like Oklahoma. But he ran into a crossfire of bad, negative commercials. Everybody was attacking Gephardt. Nobody was attacking Albert Gore, and look who finished in first place, Senator Gore. Jesse Jackson second, Gephardt third, the rest of the field as you see it. Taking a look now at Mississippi, there's a pattern developing in some of these deep South states, which we saw earlier in Georgia, and we see it again in Mississippi. It's as if they had two separate elections, one black, one white. If we look at our CBS News exit poll for the black vote in Mississippi, we'll see that that is just lopsidedly, overwhelmingly for Jesse Jackson. Well, we'd see it if the numbers showed there, but the fact is that, here we go, 88% of the black vote for Jesse Jackson. 4 years ago, Walter Mondale did pretty well with blacks in a number of southern states, not this time. Now, if we look at the white vote, as I say, it's almost like a whole separate election. 4% for Jackson, 18% for Dukakis, and the winner amongst whites, of course, Albert Gore with 53%. That same pattern in Georgia, which Gore won, that same pattern in North Carolina, which we still show as close, Alabama, which we still show as close, this two-election pattern throughout the old deep South states. And finally, Dan, one note on Maryland. Governor Dukakis won that and ran strongly just about everywhere, except in the city of Baltimore. That's a heavy black population. Jesse Jackson did well there, and the rest of the field running behind the two of them, as you see. So Dukakis, if he can say nothing else, can say, hey, guys, I'm winning on the road. I won Florida, I won Maryland. Those are not New England states.
And this increases the bet in Texas for Dukakis, because indeed, if he could come out saying, well, I won both Florida and Texas, he's won in Florida, but we don't know yet about Texas. George Bush has carried it on the GOP side, but we don't know about on the Democratic side. Then whatever Jesse Jackson does, whatever Al Gore's come into the race turns out to be, Michael Dukakis could say, listen, I won two big ones down south.
Serious bragging rights, yeah.
So we'll see what happens in Texas. Thanks, Bruce. When we come back, we'll talk to 60 Minutes correspondent Mike Wallace about the impact of television in all of this, and we'll be talking to the Reverend Jesse Jackson, so stay here with us.
This portion of CBS News coverage of Super Tuesday is sponsored by New York Life and its 9,500 agents and representatives who offer you quality financial products and services to help you get the most out of life. And by General Motors, where the vision is paying off in product excellence.
It's over there, sir.
I think it's human.
Let's get it out of here.
A frozen skier was removed from the glacier today.
1988.
The skier has been identified as David Atterbury, missing for 26 years.
He's alive. You're doing better today. Someone to see you.
I'm Lorraine Callahan. My father was your New York Life agent. Now I am. Those financial plans you and my father put together.
Get the most out of life with New York Life.
We raced 1,900 miles across Australia, powered only by the sun. GM beat Ford and 22 other entries. The GM Sun Racer. Solar panels by GM's Hughes Aircraft subsidiary. Drive motor from the GM Research Labs. MagnaQuench magnets from Delco Remy. Suspension designed by GM's engineering staffs. A triumph of GM teamwork and technology. The vision is paying off.
There's more to it than meets the eye. That crunch of wheat holds a sweet surprise. Raisin in the middle, Kellogg's Raisin Squares. It's one of life's sweet surprises. That wholesome wheat turns sweet inside. Raisin in the middle, Kellogg's Raisin Squares. There's more to it than meets the eye. Kellogg's Raisin Squares. And Apple Cinnamon Squares.
It's the same old line I fall for every time. Just as good, only cheaper. So, it's 5 minutes before the market closes. I'm on the phone, waiting for it to ring, watching my hair turn gray. Waiting. I can't get through.
Without AT&T, you're twice as likely to get a busy circuit.
One of these days, you'd think I'd learn.
AT&T's worldwide intelligent network. Because we know it's not just long distance. It's your business on the line. AT&T, the right choice.
Well, joining us now is 60 Minutes correspondent Mike Wallace to talk about the impact of television on the race. Mike, everybody talks about the impact on television in the race, but Jesse Jackson didn't have all that much television.
Candidate who has used paid television the least, Dan. North and South is Jesse Jackson, but his results have been phenomenal nonetheless. Listen to some numbers. His total television expenditure for 6 white northern states, Iowa, New Hampshire, Maine, Vermont, Minnesota, and South Dakota, came to $57,000. Per Jackson voter, that amounted to 94 cents apiece. Compare that with Dick Gephardt. He spent $700,000 in those 6 states, or $5.70 per vote. And Michael Dukakis, he spent $850,000 there, which totes up to $5.30 per voter. Now in the South for Super Tuesday. Gephardt's TV bill, $1 million. Dukakis, $2 million. Al Gore, $3 million. Jesse Jackson, $100,000. Why? Of course, Jackson doesn't have the money the others do, but here is what he told us.
I don't have the money, but I have the message, and that rich message is getting through.
As he says, the message is getting through without paid television commercials. And to prove it, half of the Southern Democrats in the CBS News New York Times poll, half of them agree with Jesse Jackson on the issues. So, at least most of the issues, Dan. So Marshall McLuhan apparently was wrong. It's not the media, it's the message.
Or is it a case of not the paid television medium? Because Jesse Jackson has received a good deal of free television airtime on newscasts and so forth.
Not as much as the last time around. Back in 1984, he was a novelty, and he got a lot of television time. Remarkably, we looked at it, and he got less than the rest. One of the reasons was because he did not indulge himself in negative advertising. If you go negative, Dukakis versus Gephardt, or Bush versus Dole, you get a lot of free television time because we like to cover the fight. He wasn't using negative television, so he didn't get some of that.
Was he treated fairly? Has he been treated fairly thus far?
Fairly, certainly.
And what about the claims that he's been treated too fairly, that he's gotten a pass?
I don't think that he's gotten a pass. The thing that's extraordinary, it seems to me, is that he's gotten as much of the white vote in northern states as he has. In Vermont, he got 26% of the white vote. Minnesota, 20% of the white vote. Maine, 27%.
Mike, thank you very much. We appreciate you being with us.
Dan.
Let's take a look quickly at how the Reverend Jesse Jackson has done so far tonight. We're again going to put up this bar graph board showing you overall how Jesse Jackson has done. He has finished first in Georgia, Virginia, Mississippi. He's got a slew of second-place finishes, and he's finished third only in Kentucky, and actually finished third in Kentucky and Oklahoma. I'm not sure the graph is right about that, but the main thing is that the Reverend Jackson has finished first in 3 states so far. Joining us now from Houston is the Reverend Jesse Jackson, who's having this big night indeed. Thank you for being with us, Reverend Jackson. And a moment ago, I thought I overheard you talking about 23 years ago, this past Sunday was so-called Bloody Sunday in Selma, Alabama.
Something phenomenal is happening in our nation. Just this week, 23 years ago, we were in the trauma of having tried to march from Selma to Montgomery. The marches were beaten back with horses and state troopers and cattle prods. And that was a very bloody Sunday. And now, 23 years later, we're not marching from Selma to Montgomery. We're marching to our local precinct polls, and thus there's a new politic in the South. And I've won southern states today, either number 1 or number 2, with a new southern message. And that message is fundamentally, we the people must stop drugs from threatening our national security and our streets, We must fight to end economic violence. That message is getting through.
Reverend Jackson, you support a lot of programs. If you just outlined full employment policy, higher pay for teachers, I'm reading off a long list here, increased federal role in daycare. How can you be seen as a responsible candidate advocating that given the size of our deficit?
Well, first of all, you must accept this fact. That is to say, if we made a big mistake by having the $600 billion tax cut in 1981, we must now responsibly offset it. The 400,000 top individuals who are making $192,000 a year or above should be at the 38% bracket as opposed to 28%. And that's about $20 billion. Corporations should be roughly at the 1970s level of the GNP with the incentives to reinvest in America as opposed to divesting from America. And we're spending about $150 billion a year defending Europe and Japan. They must share a greater part of that burden. So if we have fair taxes, we can have fair wages and fair prices. When I look at the cost efficiency of the matter, it makes more sense to invest in Head Start and daycare on the front side of life than jail care and welfare on the back side.
Reverend Jackson, thank you for being with us. Congratulations on winning 3 states and the prospect of winning some more before the night is over.
Thank you very much.
Now, we're going to pause here for a commercial break, after which some of our stations will bring you local and regional Super Tuesday results. For most of the nation, we'll be back in just a moment.
The most powerful, efficient engine ever built in America. 4 cylinders with the power of 8. Lab tested at 100 miles per hour for 100,000 miles. And for the power it delivers, the most fuel efficient. The only state-of-the-art 16-valve 4-cylinder engine made in America. The GM Quad 4 engine. We had a vision, and the vision is paying off.
There's a big company that makes these and a small one that makes these. Why would they both do business with IBM? Well, the company that makes these wants a computer company big enough to get them where they want to go. Bon voyage, kiddo. And the company that makes these needs a company with an eye for the smallest details. Small businesses have big reasons for calling IBM. Big businesses even have small reasons to call IBM. But smart businesses have every reason to call IBM.
IBM, the bigger picture.
It's over there, sir.
I think it's human.
Let's get it out of here.
A frozen skier was removed from the glacier today in the high mountains outside of Zermatt, Switzerland.
1988.
The skier has been identified as David Atterbury, missing for 26 years.
He's alive.
What happened?
You'll be just fine. You're doing better today. Someone to see you.
I'm Lorraine Callahan. My father was your New York life agent. Now I am.
Callahan, of course.
Those financial plans you and my father put together?
Your future is coming. Get the most out of life with New York Life.
Captain, this itchy rash is driving me crazy.
Why didn't you use the Cord-Aid?
Cord-Aid goes beneath the skin to actually heal itches and rashes.
You know, itches and rashes won't last if you use Cord-Aid first.
Now, to help us examine the voting results tonight and try to figure out what it all may mean, what it means for the future of the nominating process, what it means for our country, we've invited 2 distinguished journalists to join us. William Safire, the syndicated columnist for the New York Times, and Roger Rosenblatt, senior writer for Time magazine. Gentlemen, good evening. Thank you for being with us. Roger Rosenblatt, what are we to make of Jesse Jackson? And we haven't heard a word tonight about Pat Robertson, hasn't carried a single state.
Well, let me start with Jackson. It's an achievement. There's no question of that. It's an achievement for Black America to watch Jackson's success, and it's an achievement for America to watch that success. The pleasure of seeing the country realized, a dream realized, is not just the blacks' pleasure, it's everybody's pleasure. For the Democrats, assets and liabilities. Assets, Jackson brings a voting bloc to the party, a bloc he controls. For the same reason, liability.
From Channel 5, this is an Election 88 update. the Super Tuesday primaries. Tonight's coverage is brought to you by Kroger, the home of cost-cutter prices. Now, here's Chris Clark.
Some very good news for Albert Gore in the early going. The Associated Press is reporting as of a few minutes ago that Albert Gore has captured 251 delegates. They're also reporting Jesse Jackson with 147 delegates and Dukakis 134 delegates, Gephardt 71. If the AP figures are correct, Albert Gore is off on a very good start tonight. He has won Kentucky. Let's take a look at those vote totals in Kentucky with 100% of the precincts reporting. Albert Gore the winner there with 48% of the vote. On the Republican side, this is going to be a good night for George Bush. He's got 60% of the vote as the Bush train continues to roll throughout the 20 states in Super Tuesday. Albert Gore has also carried Tennessee and Oklahoma. Our earlier poll had projected Gore in Oklahoma. Now, we had projected Gore in Virginia. Gore has lost Virginia to Jesse Jackson. Jackson has carried so far Virginia, Georgia, and Mississippi. Alabama and North Carolina, Gore's got to do well there. Too close to call right now. That could mean that Gore is giving a Jackson a race in North Carolina and Alabama. Too close to call there. Dukakis won Maryland, Massachusetts, and Florida. Gephardt only Missouri, his home state. Let's go now to Gore headquarters at the Opryland Hotel. Tom Lee is standing by. Tom, I guess the important thing is if AP is correct in their reporting of 251 delegates, Gore is off to a very good start tonight.
Chris, he certainly is. You know, we projected that Gore would get between 250, 310 delegates. Considering there are 1,400 delegates available tonight, if he falls somewhere in that margin, that's going to be enough to keep his campaign viable and probably will be enough to help him emerge as the moderate alternative instead of Congressman Richard Gephardt. One of Congressman Gephardt's colleagues in the House of Representatives joins us now. He is Tennessee Congressman Bart Gordon, who inherited Al Gore's seat when he moved up into the Senate. Congressman, a lot of your colleagues endorse Richard Gephardt, and so far the results in the South don't seem to bear out those endorsements. Why do you think that is?
Well, I'm not sure that all the endorsements were fully followed through on. A lot of those congressmen like Al Gore, and I think if they had known Al was going to be involved in the race, they wouldn't have made a commitment to Dick so early. So I think when Al got in, they didn't renege on their earlier commitment, but it really sort of neutralized them.
Has there been a problem in the early going for Senator Gore, you think, identifying himself as the legitimate Southern candidate?
Not really, and I think Al is trying to be more than just the Southern candidate. I think he's trying to be the moderate candidate and the electable candidate, and the candidate that's really talking about the issues. Obviously, you know, he's from the South, but today we've got 20 states. Al has won Wyoming already. I think you're going to see him winning Nevada today. So it's more than just a Southern strategy.
All right, Congressman, thank you very much. Again, they are very happy here in the Gore camp so far with the results they've seen. Chris will keep watch throughout the night.
Okay, Les Heinz is in Houston at Bush headquarters. Bush winning Tennessee, Kentucky, a host of other states. A good night for George Bush.
That is very true, Chris, and I'm here with Lee Atwater, the national campaign chairman for George Bush. You must be very happy today.
Well, I'm just proud that I work for George Bush. This has been a tremendous personal victory to him. He's gotten out and campaigned around this country, taking his message and his campaign directly to the people. He did it in New Hampshire, he did it in South Carolina, and today he's done it in Super Tuesday.
Are you surprised?
No, I'm not surprised. I think the Vice President is the best qualified man to be the President of the United States. I think he's talking about the things the voters care about, and I think the voters have responded.
Your strategy as you head north to Illinois?
Well, I think if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I think obviously getting out there, campaigning among the people, talking directly about the issues, and communicating right there with the voters has worked very well. He'll be doing that again.
Will he start talking more about the Democratic process, the Democrats now instead of Bob Dole?
Well, he's not going to be talking about Bob Dole. He hadn't been. I think Bob Dole might have learned a lesson tonight to quit talking so much negative type talk and get on a positive vein like the Vice President.
Right. Lee Atwater, we appreciate you joining us. Back to you, Chris.
Okay, thanks, Les. We'll be back in about 25 minutes for more local coverage. In just a moment, we'll be joining CBS in progress.
From Channel 5, this has been an Election 88 update. the Super Tuesday primaries. Tonight's coverage has been brought to you by Kroger, the home of cost-cutter prices.
Channel 5. More news, more times a day. Joyce Garbasiak and Joe Case have Nashville's first news and weather at 6:30. Brenda Blackman takes a midday look around town at 1. At 6, Chris Clark and Brenda Blackman bring you award-winning coverage of the day in Nashville. And Chris Clark, Nashville's most experienced anchor, has the last word on news at 10. News when you need it, anytime you need it. Channel 5, Eyewitness News.
There are 8 million stories in the Kroger Fast Lane. People like you who have things to do, places to go, people to meet. In the Kroger Fast Lane, they can pick up a few things, pay cash, and be out in a flash. People like Fran, who wanted her husband Mike to make her breakfast in bed Sunday, so Saturday Fran went to Kroger for bread, milk, eggs, and coffee, paid cash, out in a flash. Sunday at sunrise, Mike fixed Fran French toast. People like Nate, late for a date, he needed toothpaste, aftershave, and flowers to say, sorry, I'm late, paid cash, out in a flash. The Kroger Fast Lane made Nate less late. And Bob, on his way to a sock copy, made a quick Kroger stop for soda pop, paid cash, out in a flash. Bob bebopped and sip pop till 1 o'clock. If you have a life to live, get into the Kroger Fast Lane, pick up a few things, pay cash, you're out in a flash. That's convenience.
The People's Court, weekdays at 4:30 on Channel 5.
And now more Super Tuesday coverage from CBS.
Look them over. Our CBS News estimate is that in Arkansas, the land of opportunity, it has been opportunity for Albert Gore Jr. He picks up his 4th state of the evening and wins it, the Democratic primary in Arkansas. For the Republicans, same song, umpteenth verse, Vice President George Bush, the winner in Arkansas, one of the states where some of his opponents thought they might beat him. They don't. Now, let's pause for a second and take a quick overview of the scoreboard and the scorecard. Jesse Jackson has won 3 states, Gore 4, Dukakis 3, Gephardt has won 1. Bush has won all 11 states. We're going to show you some boards in a minute which will detail all of this. We want to give you the overview of where we are at this hour. And then when we get there, we'll talk about some of where that leads us and what it means for the whole nomination process, where we go from here. Stories behind the headlines. Are the Democrats going to find a front runner? So far, it's the tale of two Souths. White voters going to Gore and Dukakis. Blacks voting in the 90% range for Jesse Jackson. Now, money and media count. Gore spent some $3 million. Dukakis spent some $2 million, most of it on television advertising. It seems to be paying very big dividends. States to look forward to. Texas. George Bush has already carried Texas, but who carries Texas among the Democrats? It is the largest of the states at stake tonight. It's still out on the Democratic side. That's one we'll have our eye on. Remember, delegates are the ultimate contest tonight. We'll talk a lot about who carried what states, but when it's all said and done, the delegate count is what matters. And a candidate can carry a state and still wind up in the delegate count, but let's say you can carry the state by a very large margin, but in the delegate count it can wind up to be close. So we'll be adding up those delegates for you, in addition to telling you who carries what states. Surprises, Gore's fast close in the South thus far has been a surprise, a fast close over Richard Gephardt, moving ahead of Gephardt in the early going to emerge along with Dukakis and Jackson right up among the Democratic frontrunners, but more about that later. Now, let's put up for you these overview boards so you can tell how each candidate is doing in the various places. For example, on the Democratic side, on the Republican side first, told. You look at this, and that's all you need to know. You talk about your blowouts. George Bush has won every state where the decision thus far. Senator Bob Dole, when you put up his flag, I'll call it here, bar graph, finished second in every state where we have a decision thus far. Pat Robertson once thought he could at least carry Mississippi. It wasn't to be. Right now, looking at the board overall, it's pretty hard to see any place where Pat Robertson is even going to finish second. Now, among the Democrats, Jesse Jackson, as we mentioned earlier, those of you who've been with us heard our interview with the Reverend Jesse Jackson. He was hoarse but all smiles, and here's why. Thus far on Super Tuesday, Jesse Jackson has carried Georgia, Mississippi, and Virginia. He's finished second in 6 states, and the rest of it, as you see it, remember that Jesse Jackson is hoping against hope to do very well in Texas as well. We'll see about that later. Michael Dukakis has to be pleased so far, but with his eye on Texas to see what happens there. Dukakis has carried Florida, the second of the big 2 at stake tonight. And Michael Dukakis is having what is for him an important evening. He'd like to win some more states, and you can bet that he's on the telephone checking it out and watching the various coverages to see how he goes in the states that are still open. And with Albert Gore, who may turn out to be one of the headlines tomorrow morning, given what he has done in the early going, Albert Gore has already carried 4 of the states where our CBS News estimates have given us definitive information, and he's finished second 3 times. So a good evening for Albert Gore. Thus far, a disappointing evening for Representative Richard Gephardt, who has carried his home state of Missouri, but nothing else. Bob Schieffer, on the surface, it looks like a bad night for Bob Dole. I suppose the biggest disappointment is that he couldn't carry North Carolina. Is it as bad as it looks?
Well, I think it goes beyond the surface. I think it just anywhere you look at it, from the front, the back, the top, or the bottom. This is a bad night for Bob Dole. Now, we have to remember that Bob Dole has finished second a lot of times, about 10 times the last time I looked at that bar graph. So he is going to get some delegates, but this is not a night that Bob Dole is going to want to put in his memory book. This is one he'd just soon get on to something else. We might take a look at a couple of these boards that you just talked about. In North Carolina, this was a state that, this is the state where Mrs. Dole comes from. The Bush people and the Dole people both thought that Dole had an outside chance of winning here. But George Bush won. He edged out Dole again. Robertson finishes third in North Carolina. Kemp, the man that gets no mention at all almost tonight, finishes fourth in North Carolina. Missouri was the state that Dick Worthland, who was Bob Dole's pollster, thought they had their very best shot. And we have not declared a winner there yet, but you can see that it is very close. And at this point, Bob Dole is leading in Missouri with about 48% of the tabulated votes so far. Bush has 36%. Again, Robertson running a rather poor third, Kemp bringing up the rear. What's happened to Pat Robertson? A couple of things we might talk about. In Oklahoma, here we see Bush is leading in Oklahoma. This is one of those places that the Dole people thought they had an outside chance, and at least Dole is making a contest of it here, about 5 percentage points behind Bush in Oklahoma. Again, Pat Robertson bringing up the rear. This was supposed to be one of Robertson's stronger states, and indeed he did get 22% of the vote in Oklahoma. What's happened to Pat Robertson? A couple of things, Dan. One of the things we found early on as we looked over our exit polling for the South, we found fewer than 20%. Is it fewer or less? I can never remember. Less than 20% of the voters who went to the Republican polls today identified themselves as evangelicals. When you get a large turnout of evangelicals, as you did in Iowa, where a third of the Republican voters said they were evangelicals, Pat Robertson does very well. But they're running 18-19% across the South tonight, and Pat Robertson is not doing well. It says to me that Pat Robertson simply has not been able to get his message beyond his core constituency.
Thank you, Bob. Now let's take a look at the Democrats with an overview. Bruce, no doubt an important win for Al Gore in Arkansas. Al Gore's goal as we moved into this Super Tuesday night was to establish himself up there with Dukakis and Jackson to pass Gephardt. Too early to say he's actually done that, but not too early to say that he's down the road a piece toward doing that.
Well on the way. We might, Dan, take a look at Arkansas because it's kind of an interesting state. I've been talking all night long about a number of deep South states where there were really 2 elections, one amongst black voters and the other amongst white voters. The same thing happened in Arkansas. Jesse Jackson got essentially all the black votes there were. The trouble is it's not a deep South state, and there just aren't that many blacks in Arkansas. So Albert Gore wins. He won narrowly among people who said they were Democrats and lopsidedly among people who said they were independents, which is a kind of thing that always makes a candidate feel good, broad appeal and all that. Social Security and unemployment seem to be the biggest issues there. This is really a battle for delegates. I'd like to move on and take a look at Georgia because that's going to indicate one of the problems we're liable to have as this evening goes on. Again, now that's a state that was polarized on racial lines. Jesse Jackson is the winner, but our CBS News estimate is that Albert Gore in second place there will actually wind up with more delegates. That's because the Democrats do everything with proportional representation. They do it by congressional districts so that if you win lopsidedly in one congressional district, it works one way, but if I win narrowly in 3 others, I'll get more delegates than you in all 3. So there are going to be some discrepancies as we go along here. I don't want to bother anybody with arithmetic, which isn't any fun, but when you say winner among the Democrats, you have to say to yourself proportional, and all the arithmetical wizards are out there with their slide rules, and it's going to be a while before we know just how the actual delegate count breaks down. So far, though, good news for everybody except Richard Gephardt. Richard Gephardt ran that famous ad about the Hyundai that was going to cost $48,000 in the United States. I think the transmission broke down.
And Paul Simon nowhere in sight, holding out to hang on till he gets to Illinois.
Well, he didn't play here, and it shows.
Bob Strauss is with us now, Bruce. Robert Strauss, the former chairman of the Democratic National Committee, a bell cow in the Democratic Party, to say the least, and one of the designers of Super Tuesday. Bob Strauss, appreciate you being with us very much. Are we likely to see a brokered nomination for the Democrats on the basis of what you've seen here tonight?
Oh, I don't think so. I don't know how you describe brokered. I think we were a long way from getting the convention, getting a nominee when we get to the convention. It looks like we're going to have 3 strong candidates, and they've got a long way to go. But broker means one thing. If there's any brokering to be done, I suspect it will be done by those super delegates that we have, some 600 people who will be uncommitted and who are not elected. These are mayors and governors and members of the House of Representatives and senators. There's about 625 of those. My guess is, with this proportional representation you were talking about, that it'll be hard for any one of our candidates to have over 200 or 400 at the very most delegate lead over anyone else. So the 600 super delegates floating around there, they're the brokers, not people. By the way, you gave me credit for helping design Super Tuesday. I did not. Had I been asked to, I possibly would have. Just no one asked me, and I wasn't involved in it.
Why do I think that a lot of Democrats would be denying they had anything to do with designing
Super Tuesday? You'll have to speak to a lot of Democrats about that. When you speak to me, I have to tell you what the truth was.
Well, Bob Strauss, you said you thought speaking of the Democrats, you think we will emerge from tonight with 3 strong candidates, those 3 being Jackson, Dukakis, and Gore or Gephardt.
Yes, I think Dick Gephardt's in trouble, but I think that Jesse Jackson deserves a good deal of credit. He was a fellow who 4 years ago did not run a serious campaign and was not taken seriously. He's obviously matured a great deal, and in 4 years he's thought about these things seriously. He's been a serious candidate, and he's been taken seriously by the people of this country, and it speaks well for him and for the country, and you're going to hear a lot more of him. Certainly, Dukakis and Gore each have a great deal to be happy about tonight. So each of these 3 are feeling pretty good and pretty comfortable tonight, and they're going north now, and we'll see how it comes out.
Bob Strauss, we have only a few seconds left. I know you understand money, clocks, and television. Do you expect Michael Dukakis to be the Democratic nominee?
Well, I expect one of those 3 fellows will probably be right now. You'll have to pick the one. I don't play guessing games at this stage of the game. I do a lot of darn fool things. I'm not that foolish.
Bob Strauss, thanks for being with us.
Thank you. It's nice being here, Dan.
And we'll be back with more of our CBS News live and continuous Super Tuesday coverage in a moment.
This portion of CBS News coverage of Super Tuesday is sponsored by New York Life and its 9,500 agents and representatives who offer you quality financial products and services to help you get the most out of life. And by AT&T, the right choice.
This is an historic moment. Commander Willis is about to end her mission to Saturn. She's been in hypersleep for 28 years.
There's another call for you, Commander.
Welcome back, Commander. Mike Johnson, New York Life. I thought you might want to discuss those financial plans.
So all those plans have been placed 28 years ago.
Get the most out of life with New York Life.
I used to love this job. Everything was so nice and controlled and together. That was until someone at the top went ahead and got us this new phone system. Well, maybe he should have asked the secretaries what they thought before he just went out and got it. Because now, well, the whole place is in a state of chaos. Clients are getting cut off right, left, and center, and calls are getting transferred to the wrong people, and try setting up a conference call. That's just a joke. I'm a pretty patient person, but these phones are driving me crazy. If I thought I could get away with it, you know what I would do? I'd just pick up the whole thing and throw it out the window. Maybe then they'd notice.
Where's Charlie?
So how's your new lawnmower?
Great, I've wanted a John Deere all my life. Out there first thing this morning, done in no time. Where is he?
I've had my John Deere rider for years. Never had a bit of trouble.
Mine started this morning like the first day I got it, and it's 7 years old.
So what's keeping Charlie?
He doesn't have a John Deere, does he?
Nothing runs like a deer.
Texas is the big one out there for the Democrats. So we don't have enough information yet to say which way Texas is going to go in its primary on the Democratic side. George Bush has won in Texas, as he has won every other place where there's been a decision. Bob Dole, with about 16% of the precincts reporting, seems to have a fighting chance in Missouri, but it's far too early to say how that's going to go. So Bob Schieffer, concentrating on the Republicans as you've been doing, certainly already tonight the George Bush forces are beginning to say it's inevitable. George Bush is invincible. He is the inevitable candidate. Now, looking at the delegate count, as apart from the states necessarily that Bush has carried, true?
Well, we don't really know yet how many delegates that George Bush has received. We know he's gotten a lot, and you have to remember on this Republican side, nearly all of these primaries are kind of a variation of the winner-take-all format. You win a congressional district and you get 3 or 4 delegates, and then you get a bonus. The winner gets a bonus. So it may well be in places like Texas and Florida, where there are 111 delegates at stake, 82 delegates at stake, that George Bush may get the majority of those. But of course, Bob Dole has finished second in a lot of places. He is going to pick up some delegates along the way. But the problem over here at the Republican desk tonight is, Dan, is to try to, how many different ways can you say George Bush has wiped him out? I mean, this is one of the great wipeouts of all time we're seeing here tonight. What George Bush has done is he swept across Super Tuesday. Bob Dole is going to have a very, very difficult time. His strength is in the Midwest. We have the Illinois primary coming up. We have Wisconsin 3 weeks after that. And then along comes New York and Pennsylvania. Surely he can put something together there. But he's really up against the wall here.
Well, for Bob Dole, Bob, that old Yogi Berra saying comes to mind. It ain't over till it's over. But rather's corollary law, if you will, is, but when it's over, it's over.
And sometimes it's almost over when it's almost over.
And that's where you think it is tonight.
Right. I'm afraid so.
That George Bush has a commanding lead. He'll come out of this with a probable, as the probable nominee, but not yet the certain nominee of the Republican Party.
No, and certainly Bob Dole would need some help from the followers of Pat Robertson. But one of the problems that Bob Dole has tonight is it does not look as if that Pat Robertson's going to pick up all that many delegates.
Thanks, Bob. Now, to help us examine the voting results tonight and try to figure out what it all means, if we can, we've invited the 2 distinguished journalists to join us, William Safire, the syndicated columnist for the New York Times, and Roger Rosenblatt, the senior writer for Time magazine. Gentlemen, again, appreciate you getting in your chairs so quickly there. Bill Safire, why would Bob Dole stay in the race with George Bush so far out in front? And is it possible he'll just check it in?
Well, before answering that, I've got to answer something very important that was raised by Bob Schieffer earlier. Is it fewer or less of a percentage, right? And millions of people across the country are wondering, which is it anyway?
Less.
And it's less of a percentage and fewer voters. All right, so how many sure things do we have tonight? That's a certain. Now, answering your question, why should Dole stay in? Well, at this stage, you play for a big break. You know that this is not one of those linear things that are just going like that. You know that the special prosecutor is working. A grand jury is working on the Iran-Contra affair. The best guesses I've heard are that he'll be coming up around the 2nd week of April. That's before the New York primary, with indictments. And you hand up indictments. Now, Dole has been advertising saying, why doesn't Bush answer the question of what did he advise the president? Well, attack spots are discounted because they're politics. But a major series of 4 or 5 indictments with a sudden rush of interesting stuff that we didn't know about Oliver North and Poindexter and the President and the National Security Council, suddenly that will be mid-next month projected into our calculations and
Roger,
into the thing.
Excuse me, Roger, you think it's all over but the counting for Bush?
Yes, except for that contingency. But what I'm trying to imagine is while Dole is crouching and praying, what kind of campaign does Bush now, as apparent shoo-in, run? He is run as part of the Reagan presidency. Now, that's what he has carried. As a matter of fact, now this may be considered a victory for moderate republicanism, and Reagan has pushed Bush ahead. But if there was a Teflon factor with Reagan, there's a Velcro factor with Bush. Things stick to Bush. He hasn't been able to shake the Iran-Contra thing yet. What kind of presidency does he look back on? Does he show home movies of the Reagan years? What is his presidency?
Well, his presidency essentially is his idea of campaigning is to clone himself to Ronald Reagan. And the fascinating thing going on within the Republican Party is the split between conservative Republicans on there's Ronald Reagan, man, Bush, talking hardline on taxes, and Dole is soft on taxes.
Bill, excuse me, I'm going to have to get hardline on time. We'll pick that up a little bit later on. Thanks. We're going to pause here for a commercial break, after which some of our stations will bring you local and regional Super Tuesday results for most of the nation. We'll be back in a moment.
Imagine going to work one day and finding your office like this. Morning. Well, it really happened to an IBM customer. A flood put their computer room under tons of water. One call to IBM, and a team of experts dived right in. They worked around the clock, and they got the system up and running in record time. No matter what size your problem or your company. That kind of service is something you should think about, because very often in business, when it rains, it pours.
IBM, the bigger picture. At General Motors, a new partnership is taking shape.
Hey, how'd it go on the new job, son?
Not bad. Yeah, we're learning a lot about computers and stuff. You know, they asked me to a meeting today.
They asked the union?
Yeah. There's a meeting on how we can improve quality. And, well, they want to know what I thought.
It's not like it was when I was on the line.
You know, I had a pretty good idea.
At GM, the partnership is working. The vision is paying off.
If you're concerned about heart disease and your doctor advises exercise, the right foods, and an aspirin a day, you should know that heart specialists recommend Ecotrin more than Bayer when they're concerned about aspirin irritation because it's safety coded. Ecotrin, the one heart specialists recommend.
This is an historic moment. Commander Bullis is about to end her 28-year mission to Saturn.
She hasn't aged a year.
How am I doing? There's another call for you, Commander.
Welcome back, Commander. Mike Johnson, New York Life. I thought you might want to get together to see how you're doing financially.
So all those plans were put in place 28 years ago?
Your future is coming. Get the most out of life with New York Life.
From Channel 5, this is an Election 88 update. The Super Tuesday primaries. Tonight's coverage is brought to you by Kroger, the home of cost-cutter prices. Now, here's Chris Clark.
Good evening, everyone. It looks like tomorrow's headline will be Albert Gore. He may not have rewritten the book on how to become president or win the Democratic nomination, but at least he's working on a couple of chapters tonight. He has carried 4 states, Tennessee, Oklahoma, Kentucky. Now Arkansas has been called for Gore. AP is reporting Gore is leading the night so far in delegates, and that's what really counts, not popular votes, delegates. He's got 251, Jackson 147, Dukakis 134, and Gephardt now at 79. What is interesting in all of this, and we keep going back to the delegate count, that even though Jackson carried Georgia, it's being reported by CBS tonight that although Gore came in second in Georgia, he's going to come away from Georgia with more delegates than Jackson will take away from Georgia. So we have a long night in figuring out exactly who's going to win what delegates. Now, we'll be going to Gore headquarters very shortly, but right now let's count some other votes. We're not just counting the presidential candidates tonight, we're also dealing with local issues. Pat Nolan joins me now. Pat, run over some of the local issues we're counting tonight.
Well, Chris, we've got a couple of judges' races we want to look at right now. Off the top, first, Matt Sweeney, easily reelected as we thought tonight over Lee Allen, who finished third, and also ahead of Fred Cowden. Let's move on now to the General Sessions judgeship. Phil Sadler there, a pretty close race with 68% of the precincts reported. A little too early to call it, him holding about a 2,000 vote lead over Mr. Linebaugh, George Linebaugh. We'll have to watch that one a little later before we can call anything. Let's move on now to the charter amendments. Well, a very big surprise at this point. 1 through 5, we might tell you, are adding members to different boards and commissions, hospitals, parks, farmers market, the state fair board, and MTA. All these being pushed very strongly by Mayor Bill Boner to try to get some things going, but he's being rejected. The honeymoon may be over early for Mayor Boner. The only one that seems to be passing at this point is Amendment number 8. That would allow it's a housekeeping amendment, allowing the Election Commission, rather than the clerk, to verify signatures if somebody wants to put something on the ballot. Chris, those are major surprises at this point if those numbers hold up.
Let's go to Gore headquarters now. Stacia Matthews is standing by. Stacia, I know it's noisy. Can you hear me over there?
I sure can. Thanks so much, Pat. And thank you, Senator. Albert Gore has won in 4 states tonight. Is he doing better than you expected?
Yes, I think Albert Gore is definitely exceeding expectations tonight. Just a week ago, people were writing off Albert Gore's candidacy in the national press. But tonight, he's running first or second in almost all of the states across the South. So I think Gore's done a great job, and I look forward to him getting a little momentum out of this and moving north.
Thank you very much, Senator. Okay, it's back to you, Pat.
Well, Stacia, I know you couldn't hear me. I just knew it was too noisy for you to hear me. Tom Gasparoli's in Houston, Texas at Jesse Jackson headquarters. Tom?
Well, Chris, as Jesse Jackson has done throughout the primary season, he's doing at least as well as expected. Tonight he is doing that. Albert Gore, as you said, is very strong. Jesse Jackson is still very strong. His people here surely expect that he will finish near the top. Reverend Jackson is not the kind of man that looks behind. He is looking ahead. Right now, he's in his hotel about a mile away talking to reporters in Chicago. That's because the Illinois primary is next. Jesse Jackson now lives there. He fully expects to do very well there, perhaps win that primary. If he does, that will give him even more credibility. It will probably bring in more money, perhaps some advertising. And so far this year, the broader the audience that listens to Reverend Jackson, the more people seem to support him.
Major development right now. CBS has called North Carolina for Albert Gore. That's a major victory for Albert Gore, North Carolina, in Gore's column. Pat, Gephardt has been bloodied before, but he could be downright DOA come Super Wednesday.
Well, Chris, I think that's right. You know, we said tonight that the thing that Gore absolutely had to do was finish ahead of Gephardt. It looks like he's going to do that very well. And indeed, the big question, Gore's going to get a big bump out of this. The question is, what can he do now in Illinois next week, 2 weeks from now? We're going out of the South now, up into the Northeast.
We'll be back with more local returns in about 25 minutes. But now we'll check in with CBS for more Super Tuesday coverage.
From Channel 5, this has been an Election 88 update, the Super Tuesday primaries. Tonight's coverage has been brought to you by Kroger, the home of cost-cutter prices.
I thought you'd like to hear Kroger's toll-free meat line experts in action. I'll call and pretend I'm a customer.
Kroger Meat Line, may I help you?
Can you tell me how to spice up a meatball dinner?
Sure, sir. Just saute the meatballs, add diced onions and fresh garlic, and simmer in a marinara sauce.
Thank you, ma'am.
Oh, and by the way, Alex, what's on sale this week?
This week, save on Oscar Mayer bacon in the 1-pound package. Buy one, get one free when you go Krogering.
Gunsmoke, weeknights at 11 on Channel 5.
CBS News coverage of Campaign 88 continues. Tonight, Super Tuesday. Reporting from CBS News election headquarters in New York, here is Dan Rather.
And good evening again. What his aides have started calling the big train George Bush keeps rolling along on this Super Tuesday and keeps on puffing among Democrats. Jesse Jackson, Michael Dukakis, and Albert Gore have wins and bragging points to puff up about. The dynamics in all important delegate counts as opposed to who wins what states, the delegate counts of tonight's 20 state races should be shaping up very soon. It's 9 o'clock here in the East, poll closing time now in Louisiana and Rhode Island. These are caucus states, so let's look them over in the 16 state primaries and 4 caucuses on this Super Tuesday night. First, down in Louisiana, our CBS News estimate is that Jesse Jackson has won the Louisiana primary. Now, Jackson earlier had victories in Mississippi, Alabama. Now he's carried Louisiana. On the Republican side, CBS News estimates that George Bush has won in Louisiana. Much earlier, he won one of the states he calls home in Texas. Continues to be an outstanding night for George Bush. Now, up on the East Coast, keep in mind that not all of the states tonight are southern. In Rhode Island, Governor Michael Dukakis of nearby Massachusetts wins the Rhode Island primary. He had early won Massachusetts and Maryland, among other states. And among the Republicans on Rhode Island, Vice President George Bush wins again. In North Carolina, we mentioned this the last hour, but some of you may not have been with us. As of the moment, it's one of the better working stories of the evening that Albert Gore Jr. has carried North Carolina. Now, Gore had earlier carried Tennessee and Kentucky and Arkansas and Oklahoma. Gore wanted to leave this Super Tuesday having bumped Dick Gephardt of Missouri aside as one of the big three being Michael Dukakis, Jesse Jackson, and somebody. Albert Gore is now bidding to be that third person, that somebody who comes out of Super Tuesday for the Democrats, bidding to be the one who gets the nomination in the summer. Well, Bob Schieffer, George Bush has continued a lot of wins tonight, the biggest certainly Florida and Texas. The question is, can anybody stop Bush? Is he the invincible, inevitable candidate? We talked about that a little bit earlier. Any change, anything to make you change your mind that, well, he doesn't have it wrapped up, but he's getting very close?
Well, no, I think all of the above stands, Dan. We might take a look at Florida. We have some new information we can tell you about Florida, where Bush won the expected victory that he was supposed to win. 82 delegates there, the second richest delegate state. Bush won a commanding 59% of the vote there. More important, perhaps, CBS News now estimates that he will get 65 of the 82 delegates. We now believe that Pat Robertson's going to get at least 3. We have not yet determined how many that Bob Dole is going to get. But in Florida, George Bush picks up 65 delegates. That's a real load. Looking at some of the things that figured into tonight's election, why did Bush voters vote for George Bush? Why did Dole voters vote for Bob Dole? One of the things we found is that the people who voted for George Bush, 45% of them said that they voted for George Bush, or 47% actually, because they liked his experience. They considered him honest, and they thought that he would promote Ronald Reagan's ideas by those percentages. Now let's take a look at the profile of the Dole voters. 40% of Bob Dole's voters said that they voted for him because he was honest. 35% considered him a strong leader, and 26% said they liked his experience. Now what those statistics tell you, Dan, is that voters believed George Bush when he said he had the right kind of experience and so forth. Bob Dole talked about the resume candidate versus the Senate leader who knew how to get things done. It just didn't work across the South. People liked George Bush's resume across the South.
And the future isn't what it used to be for Bob Dole or Pat Robertson. We haven't, there's not a single state that Pat Robertson at the moment looks like he can come anywhere close to carrying.
No, he has made a race of second place with Bob Dole in a couple of places. He was running very close to Bob Dole in Texas, for example. But so far, not much of a night for Pat Robertson.
George Bush has carried, thanks Bob, George Bush has carried Texas. We know not yet how that's going to turn out on the Democratic side, and increasingly as the minutes roll by, that is the big one still out there among the Democrats. Keep in mind that Michael Dukakis has carried to Florida, but is now he's hearing the footsteps of Albert Gore Jr. as Gore has carried North Carolina. Bruce, perhaps tonight's biggest loser among the Democrats is Representative Dick Gephardt of Missouri. He's carried his home state, not much else, and isn't he, or is he, tomorrow going to hear the other candidates say, well, the man who slings mud loses ground, and Gephardt's lost a lot?
Well, strike perhaps. I think he is tonight's biggest loser, no question about it. He came to the South on something of a roll, and the roll dried up and went away. And I think negative television advertising did have a lot to do with it. People started attacking him, the Dukakis campaign, concentrating on what it said were his flip-flops on issues, actually hired an acrobat for one TV ad and had him flipping back and forth on the screen. Albert Gore ran some negative ads, and nobody attacked Albert Gore, perhaps because they didn't think he'd do as well as he's done. We might take a look at Florida. There are a couple of things in that state. That's a state that Michael Dukakis won, a state that he was expected to win. And purists will say that's not a southern state. A lot of retirees from all over, 48% of the people in our exit poll were over 60. And Dukakis just ran away with them. 53% for him, 18% for Gephardt. But again, with the Democrats, everything is proportional representation. We think that Dukakis will get about 55 delegates, Jackson 23, Gephardt and Gore 15 or 16 apiece. If we look at Virginia now, that's another state where, in a sense, what's been the classic pattern here has repeated itself in that Jackson got just about all the black votes there were, 95% according to our exit poll. Dukakis, not Albert Gore, led amongst whites. That's the heavy concentration of affluent, sophisticated federal government workers in Arlington, Alexandria, the Washington, D.C. suburbs, which are in Virginia, and the rest of the field there in Virginia as you see it. But again, the delegates will get split up, and the way the congressional districts work out, it may even be that Gore winds up with more delegates in Virginia than Dukakis. It's going to be close. So there's a lot of proportional stuff there. Let's take a look, if we can, Dan, at delegates elected so far tonight. 1,307 of them at stake. We show Gore having won 198, Jesse Jackson 159, Dukakis 105, and just traces there for everybody else. Gephardt 82, that's really just his home state of Missouri just about. So a lot of delegates still to be picked. Texas still up for grabs, but a bad night for Gephardt, a good night for different reasons for Dukakis, for Albert Gore, and for Jackson.
Two things, Bruce. Michael Dukakis remains the only one of the Democratic candidates who's won both in the North and the South. He'll be making that argument, won't he?
Sure will, yep.
And when you say, well, how could Albert Gore have those delegates? Keep in mind those delegates you put up are delegates decided today out of the Super Tuesday group. And Albert Gore has now finished first in 5 states, and he's finished second in 4 states. And that's how he got those delegates.
Yeah, and he's now, of course, got to prove that he can win on the road. He's got to go up north and beat somebody.
Thanks, Bruce. We talk about the candidates campaigning out on the stump, up north in Illinois and Michigan, which are states upcoming very soon. But these days, the real campaigning is done on the tube. 60 Minutes correspondent Mike Wallace is here to tell us that it is not always a pretty picture. Mike?
Dan, as Bruce was saying earlier, negative advertising has been a big factor in the Southern campaign. On the stump, in this campaign, as in all recent campaigns, the candidates keep insisting that they want to take the high road, but you'd never know it if you took a look at their television commercials. Watch.
By getting into the home stretch, anything could happen. Not on our part. We're going to continue our positive high road campaign.
High road? Listen to this.
Dole is fighting to strengthen President Reagan's INF treaty to make sure the Russians don't cheat. Bush endorsed the treaty before he even read it. Dole opposed selling arms to Iran. Bush supported the arms for hostages deal.
We have no strategy to go out and be feisty or try to have a lot of theater there. That's not what this is all about.
But feisty he became.
George Bush led the fight for the INF treaty. Bob Dole straddled until the polls told him it was popular. Bush says he won't raise taxes, period. Dole straddles. He's been on both sides, and you know what that means.
And as we move now into the last phase of this campaign for Texas and Super Tuesday, I hope we can keep this campaign a positive one. A positive one.
And then he turned positively nasty over Dick Gephardt.
It's a list of Congressman Dick Gephardt's biggest contributors. A very partial list. Kind of makes you wonder, is Dick Gephardt really fighting your fight or theirs?
We're on the high road. We're talking about comparisons of stands on important issues like trade and agriculture, and I think that's what a campaign's about.
But his campaign is about getting Mike Dukakis.
Dick Gephardt is fighting for a trade bill to save American jobs. Mike Dukakis is opposed. Gephardt stands for the Save the Family Farm bill. Dukakis won't take a stand. He says our farmers have to diversify and grow blueberries, flowers, and Belgian endive. Belgian endive?
The question, of course, Dan, is which of these negative or positive lure more voters? So, that Belgian endive commercial of Dick Gephardt's may give us a clue, because before that ad ran in South Dakota, he was 16 points behind. They ran it a lot during that South Dakota campaign. He wound up winning by 13 points. They ran it again in the South. Did him no good at all, apparently, from what we've been able to see tonight. Mainly the comments about negative advertising that one hears around the country is that they are mean-spirited and not very presidential. And as some of the candidates drop out, I have a hunch, I may be wrong, I have a hunch we're going to be seeing less of these negative advertisements.
Interesting to see whether that proves to be the case. For example, does Albert Gore open up on Michael Dukakis or hold off? And Dukakis, who opened up on Gephardt, does he train negative campaigning guns on Albert Gore or wait to see what Gore is going to do? Be very interesting to see. Thanks, Mike. We're going to pause here for a commercial break, after which some of our stations will bring you local and regional Super Tuesday results, but for most of the nation, we'll be back in a moment.
This portion of CBS News coverage of Super Tuesday is sponsored by IBM, the bigger picture, the people, products, and resources of IBM, and by Cortaid. Itches and rashes won't last long if you use Cortaid first.
There's a big company that makes these and a small one that makes these. Why would they both do business with IBM? Well, the company that makes these wants a computer company big enough to get them where they want to go. Bon voyage, kiddo. And the company that makes these needs a company with an eye for the smallest details. Small businesses have big reasons for calling IBM. Big businesses even have small reasons to call IBM. But smart businesses have every reason to call IBM.
IBM, the bigger picture.
Captain, this itchy rash is driving me crazy.
Why didn't you use the Cordaid?
Cordaid goes beneath the skin to actually heal itches and rashes.
You know, itches and rashes won't last if you use Cordaid first.
How long does a John Deere last?
How long does a John Deere last? How long does a John Deere last? Well, that's a good question.
Have a nice day at school, Daddy.
You too, kids.
Bye, Dad.
Across the country, more than 350,000 General Motors workers are going back to school. They're being trained or retrained to learn new skills to keep pace with today's technology, to enhance each man and woman's value on the job market. And that means a lot to them, to GM, and to the country.
How was school, Dad?
Not bad.
Retraining, another reason why the vision is paying off.
Because Citicorp understands the drive to succeed, to do more than just get by, we've become the nation's largest financial services company, already helping 1 in every 5 American families, with more student loans, more home mortgages, more MasterCard and Visa cards than any other company. Citicorp and Citibank, we'd like you to get to know us better. Citicorp, because Americans want to succeed, not just survive.
Back at our CBS News Super Tuesday election headquarters in New York, George Bush has 14 wins, 2 holdouts so far. No decision among the Republicans in Oklahoma or Missouri. Jesse Jackson on the Democratic side has won 4 states. Gore has won 5, Dukakis 4, and Gephardt 1. Now, To give you an idea of how Michael Dukakis has done tonight, let's put up the bar graph, our star-spangled bar graph that shows you overall how he's done, what he's done, and then we'll interview Michael Dukakis. Dukakis, as we say, has won 4 states, including one of the 2 big ones, Florida. Texas, no decision among the Democrats there yet. A good evening for Michael Dukakis, but you can bet that he is watching, and hoping that he will wind up to carry the Lone Star State of Texas. Now, with that, the overall picture for Michael Dukakis tonight, let's turn and talk to the governor of Massachusetts. Governor, good evening. Thank you for being with us. You've done very well tonight. Congratulations, particularly on the win in Florida.
Thank you.
But you have done this by primarily getting the votes that Walter Mondale got in 1984. That is, you've primarily gotten white liberals and Hispanics. You haven't done well among blue-collar voters, and you haven't done well among the blacks. Can you carry the South with that basically Mondale vote?
Well, I don't think that's what it is, Dan. As a matter of fact, somebody did a poll in Florida just the other day, and I was leading George Bush in a state where he's supposed to be very strong. Now, that's obviously just a preliminary indication of what's ahead, but I feel good about the South. I feel good about tonight, obviously, and I feel good, obviously, about how far we've come and how well we've done. This is a national campaign and a national candidacy, and I think people are responding all over the country.
Governor Dukakis, if the highly volatile Panamanian situation were to continue to deteriorate, falls apart, and the resulting chaos threatens the Panama Canal, would you, as president, hesitate to use force?
No, because we clearly, under the treaty, have full authority to use force if we have to protect our rights to the canal and under the treaty, and I certainly wouldn't hesitate to use force if I had to, Dan, to make sure that those rights were protected and that our rights to the canal were protected as they are under the treaty.
Governor, what about the criticism, and you've heard it, plenty of it, that you've done a pretty good job, at least a pretty good job as governor, but you have no world view, that you lack world vision, and that's your shortcoming as a presidential candidate?
Well, you know, the fellow with the longest foreign policy resume in this campaign is George Bush, Dan, and he was the guy that sat next to the president and did nothing while we traded arms to the Ayatollah for hostages. He's the man who went to the Philippines in the early 80s and commended Marcos and his commitment to democracy. He continues to support what is a failed and illegal policy in Central America that has very little support among the American people. It's not how long you've spent in Washington. It's your values. It's your ability to pick good people. It's whether or not you understand the forces of change that are sweeping the world and whether you can provide that kind of strong leadership that I believe I can. So those are the things that distinguish people as presidents and as international leaders. We've had some very, very great presidents, international presidents, who were governors like TR and FDR and Woodrow Wilson. We've had, as you know, some presidents who spent their entire adult lifetime in Washington and were disasters as presidents.
Governor Michael Dukakis, thank you for being with us. We hope to have something on Texas coming up soon, so stick here with us. Thanks a lot.
I hope it's good news. I think it will be.
Thanks, Governor. Now, let's take a look at Representative Richard Gephardt's overall showing on this Super Tuesday night. Representative Gephardt got off to a good start by winning Iowa, fell by the wayside in New Hampshire, was hoping for a big comeback tonight. Here's the overall for Gephardt. Thus far, he has won only his home state of Missouri. He's finished second in only one place, Oklahoma, and by anybody's estimate as of the moment, Dick Gephardt's overall campaign could, underscore the word, could be in some trouble, as Albert Gore, who had staked so much on this Super Tuesday, has won in 5 states already with, of course, we mentioned again, Texas still out and some other states still out. Now, joining us now from St. Louis is Representative Richard Gephardt. Good evening. Thank you for being with us. Representative, you won 1 state so far tonight. Are you about ready to chuck it in?
Not at all, Dan. I really am sorry that we didn't do better tonight, and I want to congratulate Reverend Jackson and Al Gore and Mike Dukakis, because clearly they had a good night. But I'm far from chucking it in, because this is a long race. And I must tell you, when I've been able to get my message across, as I did in Iowa, New Hampshire, and South Dakota, and can talk about the fundamental economic issues that I think are really on the table in this election, I do well. So we're going to go on to Illinois, South Carolina, and Michigan and try to get our message across, and I think I can.
You're a man with a reputation for making tough critiques on yourself. Your advertising has gone heavily negative. It basically attacked the other candidates rather than talking up yourself. Do you think you could have done better had you been more positive in your television advertising?
Well, Dan, we lacked sufficient resources to be able to get our message everywhere on Super Tuesday. That's not going to happen in the states that are coming up now. You can't stand by, though, and have others attack your integrity and just let it go by. But I hope that when we go to these other states that we can stop the negative campaigning and talk about what we want to do as president. There are people hurting all over this country who want to have a strong economic future, and that's why I ran for president. I want to tell them my energy policy, trade, agriculture, the other things that I really stand for. And I think if I can do that, I'm going to do real well.
We have only a few seconds left, Representative Gephardt. How badly did the Dukakis flip-flop negative ad hurt you?
Well, I think it was a combination of factors. We had negative ads from both Michael Dukakis and Al Gore all through the South. I think they spent about $6 million to my $1 million, and about half of their ads were negative on me. So it was a little hard to get our message out throughout the South, but that's not going to happen to us in the states coming up because we take them more or less one at a time. And again, I think I'm the only candidate that's addressed the fundamental economic issues that are before us. And when I can get my vision out there, talk to people, I'm going to win.
Representative Gephardt in St. Louis, thank you very much. Now, we're going to pause again for a commercial break, and following that, some of our stations will bring you their local and regional Super Tuesday results. For most of you, we'll be back after these messages.
Some storm we had last night.
At times like this, it's reassuring to know that MetLife has the resources to pay every single customer claim, no matter how many come in at one time.
Get Met, it pays.
It's a fact of life. On America's busy highways, somebody is always going to bump into someone else, which is why General Motors devotes so many of its resources to improving driver and passenger safety. From basic design of chassis, interiors, and brakes to exhaustive crash testing and the only biomedical research laboratory in the industry, GM, world leader in safety research. The vision is paying off.
You're on your way.
Putting the sun to work is my vision of the future. I believe solar-powered cars will be practical and necessary. Dow believes in my dream and has given me an open road to explore it. To discover and prove the car's worth, Dow backed me in races across Australia and over the Alps. As the dream comes closer, Dow is making the difference.
Dow lets you do great things.
Compared to the pieced-together frame of a typical lawn and garden tractor, the frame of a John Deere is a single mass of welded steel. And because it isn't made of pieces, it doesn't go to pieces.
Captain, this itchy rash is driving me crazy.
Why didn't you use the Cord-Aid?
Cord-Aid goes beneath the skin to actually heal itches and rashes.
You know, itches and rashes won't last if you use Cord-Aid first.
From Channel 5, this is an Election 88 update. The Super Tuesday primaries. Tonight's coverage is brought to you by Kroger, the home of cost-cutter prices. Now, here's Chris Clark.
Albert Gore still the story, still doing better than any other candidate during this Super Tuesday. Let's take a look at the map. Gore has carried 5 states more than any other candidate thus far: Tennessee, Oklahoma, Kentucky, Arkansas, North Carolina. But this is not a contest where popular vote means a whole lot. Delegate vote is the big issue here tonight, and AP and CBS both agree that Albert Gore is winning more delegates than any other candidate tonight, even though they differ in raw numbers reporting. AP reporting substantially higher delegate counts for all of the candidates as opposed to what CBS is reporting tonight. So delegate count is the name of the game, and Gore is doing quite well there. Who is not doing quite well on the Republican side? Pat Robertson. George Bush is going great guns. Dole is doing less than good, but Pat Robertson so far has not won a state. Robertson's been saying all along, it's not the states you win, it's the delegates you win. Joyce Garbasiak is standing by at Pat Robertson headquarters right now in Atlanta. Joyce?
Chris, there's a big party going on here, and to tell us why everybody's celebrating is Ben Walden, who is Pat Robertson's deputy press secretary. Sir, all of the polls and all the results coming in don't look good. Why is everyone so happy here?
Well, first of all, we, have not seen all the results in. We're doing well in a lot of the counties and the districts that we polled across the United States, so we're optimistic. And of course, these people are not in it for today. They're not in it for just yesterday. They're in it for the long haul. And if that means next week, next month, they're happy to be behind Pat Robertson all the way to the end.
Now, there were some specific states that your campaign mentioned you had hoped to do well in: Arkansas, Alabama, Georgia, and yet we see with popular votes coming in that that's not happening. Why do you think Pat hasn't caught on?
Well, remember that the popular vote is not everything. In a lot of these states, that the delegates are apportioned by congressional districts, and in specific congressional districts, we're still doing very well. We hope to come away from Super Tuesday with a number of delegates that will put us in a good position all the way to August.
Okay, Mr. Walden, thank you for joining us. Now back to you, Chris and Pat.
Okay, some local races we're counting as well, and some big surprises there. Pat Nolan has those.
Well, Chris, that's right. We got about 96% of the precincts counted so far. Let's go first to the 99% of the precincts in. So it looks like Matt Sweeney has been renominated to the circuit court to fill out the rest of that term.
That's tantamount to election.
It's tantamount to election. There is no Republican opposition in August. Let's move on to what may be a closer battle for the General Sessions judgeship. It does look like former councilman and General Sessions Judge Phil Sadler has won a pretty good-sized victory there, about a 5,000 vote victory or so over George Linebaugh. Linebaugh's second effort to try to win General Sessions judgeship. The big story of the night has to be the rejection of all these Metro Charter amendments. Mayor Boner pushing to try to get some extra representation on a number of these boards and commissions. Obviously, the public disagrees about this. I think there's going to be some feeling that perhaps the honeymoon that all politicians have when they first go in is not going to last for Bill Boner too much longer with results like this. The only amendment that's passing tonight, Chris, is the one that is basically a routine housekeeping change, allowing the Election Commission to take care of counting anything that comes on from the ballot. Amendment 10, the one for redistricting, also rejected soundly tonight, as expected. So the council can't do it alone. You'll have to continue to submit it to the people if there's a disagreement about
Okay, let's go to Gore headquarters now, the Opryland Hotel. Tom Lee standing by. Big night for Albert Gore. Tom?
Very big night, Chris. In fact, probably the victory that means the most to Al Gore here is North Carolina. It was a very close state, and a state in which he invested an awful lot of his last-minute time and advertising dollars. But the 5 victories so far tonight are going to vault Gore into a position, as we've talked about this evening, where he is probably one of the final 3 contenders. You may have heard the interview earlier on CBS with Richard Gephardt, and the question of Gephardt's campaign in the next week is going to be, should he stay in the race, and will he stay in the race? I spoke just a few moments ago with Fred Martin, Gore's national campaign manager. Unfortunately, he left the room. But Martin said that he thinks Gephardt now is in a great deal of trouble, and that if Gephardt can't do any better in a 20-state primary, which he tried to claim as his home region, then he's going to have a lot of difficulty taking his message to the industrial states.
You know, not to take away from the sweetness of this moment for the Gore people, but he's got to win away from home as well, and that'll be the next step we'll be looking for, as we still haven't wrapped up Super Tuesday.
No, we haven't, Chris, and whether or not Gore can carry his message into those industrial states is the real question. States like Illinois, Pennsylvania, New York have a history of favoring a liberal politician like Mike Dukakis.
We'll be back in about 23 minutes with more local returns. Now back to CBS.
From Channel 5, this has been an Election 88 update, the Super Tuesday primaries. Tonight's coverage has been brought to you by Kroger, the home of cost-cutter prices.
The Kroger Cost Cutter scissors stand for something very special. They're a symbol of our commitment to save you more every day. So when you see our Cost Cutter scissors throughout the store, that's your sign for extra low prices on hundreds of your favorite products. Kroger cuts your costs every week in every department through the buying power of over 1,000 stores. We buy more, so you save more, right where it really counts. See the difference Cost Cutters make. Go Krogering.
This Easter, you could get your child an Easter Bunny hand puppet from Hardee's, or a real Easter Bunny. Your kids will have fun with this one too. This one can live in your house. This one needs its own. This one is available at a special low price. He's considerably more. Overall, I'd have to say the Hardee's puppet is a much better choice.
Harold, have you cleaned those cages?
I rest my case.
Easter Bunny hand puppets at Hardee's. One more way we're out to win you over.
Put something extra into your day. Join me for Channel 5 Extra weekdays.
CBS News coverage of Super Tuesday continues. Here again is Dan Rather.
And good evening again. It's 9:30 now in the East. Pretty good story going here on Super Tuesday. There'll be those who say, well, it didn't turn out all that super, but it certainly isn't superfluous. Major races still to be decided, among them Texas, the biggest of the Super Tuesday delegate bonanza big ones. Among the Democrats, still a close one out there in Texas between Michael Dukakis and Jesse Jackson. We'll be reporting about that for you during this half hour. Among the Republicans, two Bush-Dole contests yet to be decided in what is otherwise a Bush clean sweep. Missouri and Oklahoma still Bush-Dole battlegrounds, otherwise it's all Bush. Let's look over from a wide shot using our star-spangled graphic here to tell you who's won what where. Now with George Bush, frankly, you don't even need your glasses to see this board. George Bush has won everything, every place that's had Republicans stamped on it tonight. Has anybody seen Pat Robertson? Well, not much. More about that later. For Senator Bob Dole of Kansas, remember he won the Iowa caucuses, then was disappointed by losing to Bush in New Hampshire, that Bob Dole has yet to win a single state in the South. As some would say in the South, Bob Dole has won none. He has finished second a lot of places, but he has finished first nowhere. Very disappointed he didn't carry North Carolina. Now, Pat Robertson, we said, has anybody seen Pat Robertson? The former, as he likes to be called, religious broadcaster, had high hopes going into Super Tuesday in the South. High hopes are not enough. He's finished second 4 places, but first no place. Now switching over to the Democrats and what may be tomorrow's running story, at least sub-headline story behind Bush sweeps everything in sight. For the Democrats, the story of Albert Gore Jr. You'll remember that Albert Gore staked almost everything on at least a decent showing for Super Tuesday. And at least a decent showing he is getting, and most analysts, I think, would say better than that. That Gore has won in Arkansas, Kentucky, North Carolina, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Georgia, Louisiana, are in the second category. You can see the states he's won. He's won 5. Gore will be looking out toward Texas as well, although our latest indication for Texas is between Dukakis and Jackson there. More about that later on, but you can see how well Gore has done. Michael Dukakis has also done impressively well tonight, mostly because he has won Florida. In addition to Florida, he has won the other states that you see listed there, including his home state of Massachusetts, Maryland, and Rhode Island. He's finished second 4 times. As for the Reverend Jesse Jackson, who was looking for a big night here on Super Tuesday, thus far he's gotten, if not a big night, and I think he would argue, and rightly so, that it has been a big night, but at the very least, he has gotten what was expected of him. He has won so far 4 states, and that includes a big win for him in Virginia. He's also won in Georgia and Louisiana and Mississippi. But Jackson is in the hunt in Texas, and should Jesse Jackson win Texas, that would be a headline tomorrow. Our CBS News estimate is that Michael Dukakis and Jesse Jackson are locked in a tight race in Texas. Now, as for Representative Dick Gephardt, you can see, although he was smiling a moment ago when we interviewed him, that behind that smile has to be some concern, because so far tonight he's carried only his home state of Missouri. With us now from Nashville, Tennessee, is Senator Albert Gore Jr., who had staked so much on this Super Tuesday night. Senator Gore, thank you for being with us. Congratulations. You skipped Iowa and New Hampshire to run in your region. You've done well there. So how do you prove that you're not a regional candidate? Where can you win in the North?
Well, thank you for having me on your program, Dan. This is a great victory. We're all very excited about it. They said it couldn't be done, and it has been done. not just in the South, but elsewhere as well. We won in Wyoming on Saturday. We're now ahead, and I think we're going to win in Nevada later on tonight when their caucuses are completed. The people are saying they want to put the White House back on the side of working men and women and bring the Democratic Party back to the grassroots. That's what my campaign is all about. That's why we have had this tremendous victory here tonight.
Let me follow up on that. You beat Richard Gephardt essentially by changing your campaign message from defense, which you thought was going to be popular in the South, to a populist message, among other things saying that there's Wall Street greed running rampant, that sort of thing. Now, will you continue to carry that populist message as you move north, or change it?
Well, you know, for 12 long years, I have fought battles in behalf of working men and women, often against some of the most powerful interests in this country. So there's nothing new at all about that. In every campaign I've ever run during the closing weeks, I have refined and sharpened that message to aim at the core Democratic constituencies and just to say exactly what our approach for the country is as Democrats, and that is to fight for the average person. I think this contest from here on out is going to be a very different contest, but my message is going to be exactly the same, fighting for the average men and women. And I'm going to be saying that I represent the politics of the future. We have to have the Democratic Party appealing to independently thinking voters. And if you look behind the headlines, you'll find that we did particularly well with independents and independently thinking Democrats and some disillusioned Republicans, and that's where the battleground is going to be in the general election.
We have only a few seconds left, Senator Gore, and I know as a former reporter that you understand deadlines and time. But one of the candidates tonight, Richard Gephardt, took a lot of heat for flip-flopping on the issues. Do you expect Michael Dukakis now to begin running negative ads on you saying Albert Gore is really a liberal, he ran down south as something else, but he's been flip-flopping?
Well, I don't know what he will do. I'm going to continue to put out a positive message about what my vision for the future of this country is. I really believe that we've got to understand that we've lost 4 of the last 5 elections for president, twice by a score of 49 states to 1. And Mike Dukakis represents the same formula that we tried in 1972 and 1984, and Democrats are hungry for a victory this year. I'm going to be taking our basic Democratic message to Michigan and Ohio and Illinois, the other industrial states that will come center stage now after Super Tuesday, and we're going to be asking the mainstream Democratic voters to support the Gore campaign.
Senator Albert Gore, winner in at least 5 states tonight, thank you very much, and we'll be watching about it to see whether you carry it. Thanks a lot for being with us.
Thank you, Dan.
Bruce Morton, as it stands now, have the Democrats come out of Super Tuesday with a front runner?
No, I don't think so. I think they've come out with a pack, as is obvious. You know, one of the biggest surprises of the night is how well Albert Gore did. And clearly, he's a Southerner, he's done well in the South, and it remains to be seen whether he can take his message to Illinois or Pennsylvania on down the road and have it play there. But he did what was the unorthodox thing. He stayed out of the supposedly critical early tests, and he did really well. The other big surprise, I think, is how badly Richard Gephardt did. This was the only one of these candidates who was present at the creation of Super Tuesday. Remember, the Democratic Leadership Council has thought this thing up. He thought it would help him. He was for the oil import fee, which he thought would work in the oil states in Oklahoma, Louisiana, and Texas. It hasn't worked for him. Nothing has worked for him except in his home state of Missouri. So 2 big surprises there, I think. If it's done one thing for the Democrats, it's funny in a way, I suppose. It's probably given them the Republican they'd all like to run against. Everybody I know amongst the Democratic professionals would rather run against George Bush than against Bob Dole.
But those same Democratic professionals once said, boy, give us Richard Nixon, that's the candidate we want. And they also said, give us that actor Ronald Reagan, we can really punch him out.
Yeah, wrong a lot and still in business. That's
like a lot of reporters
and campaign consultants get to do that, I think. We might, since this really is a thing about delegates, take one last look at who has won delegates tonight. We've got 1,307 convention delegates at stake, and here we are. Albert Gore, the night's big winner, 276. Jesse Jackson second, Michael Dukakis third. They will all say those were respectable numbers. Dick Gephardt will be not so happy with his 101, and of course none for Gary Hart or Paul Simon. Then let's take a look at all the delegates chosen so far in all the primary contests. Dukakis just a whisker in front there. Albert Gore, again off tonight's strong showing, in second. Jesse Jackson, a formidable and well-placed third. Gephardt, a somewhat distant fourth. There's Simon and Hart well down the list. So people go on. This field isn't getting winnowed the way it was supposed to. There's still a bunch left.
Thanks, Bruce. When we come back, we'll be talking to one of the candidates tonight who saw the light at the end of the tunnel and the light was out, the Reverend Pat Robertson. So stay with us.
This portion of CBS News coverage of Super Tuesday is sponsored by Kellogg's Muesli cereal, what breakfast was meant to be, and by Citicorp, because Americans want to succeed, not just survive.
If breakfast were as it was meant to be, it would be a centuries-old balance of fruits, grains, and nuts. The breakfast Europeans call muesli. Now muesli comes to America as Kellogg's Mueslix. Oats, wheat, rice, corn, barley, raisins, dates, and hazelnuts. Kellogg's Mueslix. 5 grain or bran. What breakfast was meant to be.
You can see the dream of success in the eyes of people all across America. At Citicorp, we understand the dream. That's why, as Citicorp and Citibank, we've become America's largest financial services organization, already helping 1 in every 5 American families, with more home mortgages, more student loans, more MasterCard and Visa cards than any other company. We'd like you to get to know us better. Citicorp, because Americans want to succeed, not just survive.
Today, General Motors is building the first completely new full-size pickup in this decade. Robot fixtures using laser eyes allow precise fitting of the parts to the body shell. Unique manufacturing methods allow functional assembly tolerances to be held to plus or minus ½ a millimeter, virtually a hair's breadth. Just one of the reasons we believe it is quite simply the best-built truck in the world. At GM, the vision is paying off.
Imagine going to work one day and finding your office like this. Good morning. Well, it really happened to an IBM customer. A flood put their computer room under tons of water. One call to IBM, and a team of experts dived right in. They worked around the clock, and they got the system up and running in record time. No matter what size your problem or your company. That kind of service is something you should think about, because very often in business, when it rains, it pours.
IBM, the bigger picture.
At our CBS News Super Tuesday election headquarters here in New York. Eastern time, it's about 18 minutes before 10 o'clock. George Bush has carried Texas, but Democrats are looking to Texas to see how that one goes. It's been an interesting evening. Michael Dukakis has got some bragging rights to a few things. Jesse Jackson has. Albert Gore Jr. has. Been a disappointing night for Richard Gephardt. Very big night for George Bush all the way around. As for Pat Robertson, who had staked so much on a good showing in the South, let us show you overall how things have gone for Pat Robertson, an entrepreneur, former religious broadcaster. He thought he could finish first in Mississippi. He didn't. He thought he might finish first in a number of places, but hasn't. He has 4. He has 4 second-place finishes, a long string of trays, and 1 fourth-place finish in Massachusetts. Now, Pat Robertson is standing by in Atlanta to answer our questions now. Thank you for being with us, Pat Robertson.
Thanks, Dan. It's good to be here with you tonight.
Well, we remarked earlier on, we had a slight glitch there. We remarked earlier on to the effect that this evening things started slow and seemed to taper off for you. Why?
I didn't, frankly, have the concentration I should have had in certain key states. I tried to play every one in the South, and we just didn't have the resources to match George Bush. He ran a superb campaign, and I congratulate him on it. I thought we would do better, but I did improve on my standing in the polls 6 or 8 months ago, probably by 4 or 5 times. So it isn't too bad for an amateur, but it's not near what I expected.
Are you prepared to throw in with Bob Dole now in order to stop George Bush, if indeed that can be done post-Super Tuesday?
Dan, it looks like the one that may come out of Illinois is going to be Pat Robertson rather than Bob Dole. I do have resources left, we have the largest donor base of any candidate, and I can carry all the way to New Orleans.
Well, Pat Robertson, you've accused George Bush of a lot of things, both explicitly and implicitly. Given that you've accused him of just about everything except maybe causing El Nino, can you support him for president if he winds up to be the Republican nominee?
Well, I am pledged to support the nominee. It's a question on how enthusiastic it's going to be. But nevertheless, I right now am going to be the rallying point for those who don't want George Bush as the nominee of the party. So if they want a conservative alternative, I'll be the one.
Thank you for being with us, Pat Robertson from Atlanta.
Sir.
We'll see whether you make good on your prediction of carrying the GOP side in Illinois. Thanks.
Thank you.
The doors are about to close at the big Super Tuesday delicatessen. We'll see what Bill Sapphire has to say about that a little later on. With that, we pass another milestone on the road to the White House. 60 Minutes correspondent Ed Bradley joins me now to tell us about where we go from now.
Dan, after the South and the Sun Belt, it's going to be a return to the politics that we're used to, one state at a time rather than this regional business we've seen today. And we're looking at what's called the Rust Belt coming up. Next week, Illinois, then New York and Pennsylvania.
These are states with large blocks of urban voters, people who are concerned about the gritty big city problems. These are states that over the last 10 years have lost nearly 1 million manufacturing jobs to the Sun Belt. 2,200 were laid off last year at the General Electric plant in Schenectady, New York, the city that used to boast, "We light up the world."
I'm very concerned. And I think most of us, all of us work for GE. We're all concerned.
I think working people are scared. I really believe working people today are scared. I don't care what profession you're in. They're scared.
Schenectady's unemployment rate is low, but that's misleading because a lot of people who were laid off just left town, and others are now working at new jobs, but for a lot less money.
The question really is, what is a president or what is anybody going to do for the Rust Belt, the Frost Belt, or whatever we want to call it? We are losing jobs. We are losing the economy.
Such economic losses are a problem all over the Rust Belt. For example, last month when the national unemployment rate went down, reaching a 10-year low, in Illinois it did just the opposite, going up almost a full percentage point.
Economic pressure is a much greater concern to people in Illinois, and I think the entire industrial sector of the country.
What we need is a Harry S. Truman. Tell her like it is. We tell her like it is. Impeccable character, brave, courageous.
What you talking about, Mario Cuomo?
No. Yeah.
The New York governor's name constantly pops up in political discussions here, even though he has said over and over he has no plans to run for president. But some voters, disappointed with their choices, still dream of Cuomo as a last-minute candidate.
When you see all the potential and you yearn for somebody to come in and turn the country around, Cuomo could do it. He's the reluctant dragon, but I hope he gets in there and sheds his reluctance.
And Dan, if you talk to people who claim to know what it is that Cuomo's thinking and what he's planning, they say there's no way he's going to shed that reluctance. He's just not going to do it. He's not going to get in it. This is not some strategy that he's worked out to get the nomination. He's out of it.
You believe that?
I believe it. I mean, he hasn't told me, but I think that Mario Cuomo really likes Albany, and I don't think that he feels it's time for him to make that move. I think he's looking more to 1992. He fits in with Bradley, who thinks whoever follows Reagan is going to be Hoover too.
Now, there'll be a lot of pressure on Mario Cuomo to come out in support of someone. One can almost hear the Michael Dukakis people saying, come out in favor of us. Do you think he'll do that?
I don't know. I think that's the way he's leaning from what I'm told now.
Might be a few days, if not weeks, before he does that. Now, what does Jesse Jackson want? We have only a few seconds here. We want to discuss this as we go around this evening, but in your opinion, what is it that Jesse Jackson, what's his bottom line?
I think he wants to be president.
You bet he does.
I think he wants to be president, and if that's not possible, I think he wants to be treated with the respect that he's earned in this campaign, for the way he's run this campaign, and the delegates that he's earned. I mean, the last time they said that Jackson was outside the door. This time, Jackson is like if you have a dinner party and you open the door and there's a 7-foot, 500-pound guest at the door, you'll say, sir, where would you like to sit? Jesse Jackson gets to sit at the table this time.
He comes to the table with some powerful cards in his hand. Ed Bradley, thanks. Now, when we come back, we'll be talking about the meaning of tonight's results, what the candidates may be saying to themselves and to their staffs tomorrow morning. So stick here with us.
This portion of CBS News coverage of Super Tuesdays is sponsored by the Travelers. You're better off under the umbrella. And by the people of Dow.
If breakfast were as it was meant to be, it would be a centuries-old balance of fruits, grains, and nuts. The breakfast Europeans call muesli. Now muesli comes to America as Kellogg's Mueslix. Oats, wheat, rice, corn, barley, raisins, dates, and hazelnuts. Kellogg's Mueslix. 5 grain or bran. What breakfast was meant to be.
Captain, this itchy rash is driving me crazy.
Why didn't you use the Cord-Aid?
Cord-Aid goes beneath the skin to actually heal itches and rashes.
You know, itches and rashes won't last if you use Cord-Aid first.
If you're concerned about heart disease and your doctor advises exercise, the right foods, and an aspirin a day, you should know that heart specialists recommend Ecotrin more than Bayer when they're concerned about aspirin irritation because it's safety coded. Ecotrin, the one heart specialists recommend.
Welcome to the new world, where all the rules have changed. A world of financial expertise to accumulate assets, finance mortgages. A world of insurance protection for lives, property, and businesses. A world of comprehensive, affordable health services. It's the world of the Travelers, one of America's strongest insurance, financial, and health service experts. The Travelers. You're better off under the umbrella.
Going to Providence St. Mel in the heart of Chicago is something special because almost every graduate goes on to college. And thanks to the people at Dow, we get scholarships, money for this old building, even books and tuition so my teacher could go after his PhD. Says he'd love to pay Dow back with a scientist.
Yes, you can make a difference in what tomorrow brings.
Maybe this scientist.
'Cause Dow lets you do great things.
From Channel 5, this is an Election 88 update. The Super Tuesday primaries. Tonight's coverage is brought to you by Kroger, the home of cost-cutter prices. Now, here's Chris Clark.
The headline tomorrow, Albert Gore continues to do well, especially where it counts in delegate strength. First of all, let's check the map and show you what he's done tonight. He has carried 5 states. That's more than any other single candidate has carried thus far, though the count is far from over. Let me assure you of that. Tennessee, Oklahoma, Kentucky, Arkansas, North Carolina, Gore wins. In the all-important delegate count, these are new figures. The AP figures of delegate count and the CBS figures from tonight only. They both show Albert Gore leading in the delegate count tonight. Now, there is something we should mention here, and that is that Texas has not been decided yet. Those are not in there. Texas, of course, the single biggest state being decided tonight. But Gore doing quite well in the delegate count where it all counts. Those are updated figures for both AP and CBS. To date, from the very first caucus and primary through tonight, this is how it stacks up. Gore has moved within 2 of the frontrunner Michael Dukakis. Again, Texas not included here. Jackson doing very well. Gephardt very well. Gephardt is bloodied. He may not be DOA on Super Wednesday. We'll have to wait and see how the rest of tonight shakes out. Now, there are some local races we are covering as well. There are a lot of local races on the ballot. We're only counting those which are contested. Pat Nolan, run those down for us again quickly.
Well, Chris, we got a couple of judgeships we want to look at. First, Matt Sweeney renominated to fill out the rest of the term until 1990 in the circuit court, winning over Cowden and Allen. Let's move on now to General Sessions. Again, Councilman Phil Sadler, former councilman, now Judge Sadler, has turned back the bid by Linebaugh Again, George Linebaugh running for the second time. He did not make it. He had a spirited challenge, but did not make it. The amendments tonight in the big story, these amendments being rejected. There will be no extra members on the hospitals, parks, farmers markets, state fair, MTA, health board, or civil service boards. By pretty large margins, Mayor Boner has been rejected on those ideas. They also rejected Amendment number 10, which would allow the council alone to decide redistricting when that's done in 1990 and beyond. The only amendment that passed tonight was one that was strictly housekeeping, Chris. It would have allowed one way or the other for the clerk, instead of the clerk counting those when they go on the ballot, to allow that to be done instead by the Election Commission. And one other thing over in Franklin and Williamson County, the enhanced 911, won handily tonight, 95-5. Now that's going to mean a little extra, 95% to 5%. That's going to mean a little extra charge for people on their phone bills. Yeah. Keep that in mind, because we'll probably see a vote on that coming up at Metro sometime.
You say those judges are nominated. In effect, they are elected, isn't that?
They really are, because there's no Republican opposition for any of them when we get to August.
Okay. George Bush having a super night tonight. Bob Dole, not so super. Frank Mann is in Chicago, where Bob Dole has set up his campaign headquarters tonight. Frank?
Well, despite tonight's rather brutal beating, Bob Dole did not go down for the count. Instead, he told his supporters just a few moments ago in this banquet hall here that his campaign is very well on the road to recovery. He issued a challenge tonight to George Bush, telling him that Super Tuesday is over and that Bush must now face the voters one state at a time. Dole is obviously staking his hopes on winning the big primary here in Illinois 1 week from tonight. That is going to be a very important primary. If Dole wins that, he could take Wisconsin. But if he doesn't win the Illinois primary, Wisconsin could fall to George Bush. Now, at this point, Bob Dole is really in a survival game, and there are only a few more moves he has left. As we said earlier, he is still seeking the support of Pat Robertson or Jack Kemp. Robertson has hinted that he would prefer Dole as president instead of Kemp. So right now, very optimistic, even though they did suffer a very crushing defeat. We'll have more for you. From Chicago, live reporting, I'm Frank Mann.
Okay, thanks, Frank. Albert Gore had to replace Gephardt as one of the top three, and he's well on his way to doing that tonight. Tom Lee standing by at Al Gore headquarters at the Opryland Hotel.
Chris, thank you. You know, a lot of people said Al Gore may not be able to jumpstart a campaign in the South. Gore said, I'm not jumpstarting at all. I've been campaigning there for over a year, and it appears now that he may have confounded a lot of the experts who said he couldn't do it. He is now certainly among the leaders nationally in delegate count. One of the people who helped engineer the Super Tuesday concept is the chairman of the Tennessee Democratic Party, Dick Lodge. Did Super Tuesday work?
Super Tuesday did work. The attention of the nation was focused on the South. The country was looking toward the South even while Iowa and New Hampshire were going on. We have a candidate now who really won tonight, who started his campaign here. That's going to change the future of politics in the primary process. That's what Super Tuesday was designed to do, and that's what it did.
There was a lot of talk about Jesse Jackson's success in the South, perhaps negating the success of Super Tuesday. He is certainly no moderate.
No, he's certainly not. His constituency is in the black community in the South. He's going to do well in the South. He ought to do well in the South. And the fact of his success, as he's had it, doesn't negate the idea, the purpose, and the success of Super Tuesday.
All right, Dick, thank you very much. Senator Albert Gore is about an hour away from an appearance here. We hope to have him live on our 10 o'clock newscast. And when he appears, we'll bring him to you. Chris?
Okay, thanks, Tom. Pat Nolan, we've just got a couple of minutes left, but we have to sign off until our 10 o'clock newscast. Super Tuesday, in many respects, did work, and it's surprising a lot of people, I think.
Yeah, it did. I think Al Gore probably did better than we thought he was going to do. Certainly it's not the sweep that he might have wanted eventually, but of course Dick Gephardt was still in, although I think he's been perhaps mortally wounded tonight. Also think that Jesse Jackson has also emerged and will continue to be a major factor. Now the real challenge for Gore is going to be to come up and do something in the Rust states, particularly in Illinois. The one thing that bothers me tonight, or might bother the Gore campaign from that regard, he finished 5th in Maryland. That's the closest to an industrial-type state that we had on here tonight, outside of, say, Massachusetts, where obviously Governor Dukakis is going to win.
But he's got the message now, you'd agree, right? He has honed in on his message now, don't you?
He may have to refine it better, but he's got a message.
That's our coverage for now. We'll see you at 10 o'clock with a complete wrap-up, including a live statement from Senator Gore. Good night.
From Channel 5, this has been an Election 88 update, the Super Tuesday primaries. Tonight's coverage has been brought to you by Kroger, the home of cost-cutter prices.
We'd like 2 Burger King burgers for $1.
Is that 2 burgers or 4?